podcast. My name's Catherine. I'm a crochet designer from South London in the UK, where I live with my husband and my two daughters. And this is my podcast where I like to chat about all the recent crochet and knitting projects that I've been working on. I feel like I've had quite a productive few weeks since my last podcast. I'm quite pleased with what I've got done. So I've got a few things to share with you today. I've got 2 finished objects and 3 whips, and 2 of the whips are new. And then I'm also going to chat a little bit about my plans for upcoming projects once the current whips are completed as well. So yeah, really excited to share all of that with you today. So let's start off with the finished objects. So the first one is this cardigan, which I'm wearing. This is the Moira Cardigan by Carrie, and it's a free pattern. I'll pop a link to it underneath. I've chatted about it quite a bit in the last 2 podcasts, so I won't go into too much detail, but it's been a really enjoyable make. I'm really pleased with it, really pleased with the final fit. I only had a little bit to do last time I spoke to you. It was just this final band of ribbing. I joined it all together. It was just this final band of ribbing around the neck and down these 2 front sides. So I added that on. I like doing ribbing, so it wasn't really much of a chore. It was a enjoyable last job, and I've been enjoying wearing it quite a bit recently. Although it's the middle of April now, we've had a few warm days, but not really that many at all. And this week it's actually got quite cold again. It's sunny today, but we had hail and thunder the other day, rain showers. It's been quite cold. So this has actually had quite a bit of wear, which has been really nice. Although I am hoping that the weather will warm up again properly soon and stay warm. So hopefully this will then go away for a few months until the autumn. But very happy with this cardigan. Yeah, I was making it as a stash busting project, and as I said last time, I did have to buy a bit more yarn to complete it, and I overbought on the yarn, so my total amount of yarn has gone down at the end of the project, but not by quite as much as I was hoping for. But apart from that, yeah, I definitely recommend this pattern. It's really nice, really fun. I'd quite fancy doing one in a grey maybe, if I made another one. Although I do very rarely return to a pattern and make the same thing twice. I think I'm always more tempted to try something new. But if I did, I think I'd make it in a dark grey. But yeah, so that's my first finished object, the Moira Cardigan. And if you want any more details or to hear me talk about it more, go back and have a look at one of the last 2 episodes, because I talk about it in both of those as well. Definitely the last episode, I think, probably in episode 28 as well. So the other finished object is, this was a whip last time. I was about halfway through it, and this is my Moss Stitch corner to corner blanket. This was another stash busting project. So as you can see, it's a nice size. It's definitely a good lap size. I've had it on my lap in the evenings recently because as I was saying, it has still been a bit chilly here. But yeah, so it's a good size. This was using up leftover yarn from my Sarah blanket, and I wanted it, I think if I'd just done them all the colours randomly, it probably would have been a bit too busy and messy. So I decided to keep them in rainbow order, and based on how much I had of each colour, I did 2 rows sort of there and back of each colour before going on to the next one, apart from one colour, which is like a dark tealy colour, where I only did a single row each time because that was the one I had the least of. I'd used that to do the border on my Sarah blanket. So I carefully weighed it all, and when I got to about just under halfway through the colours I had the least of, I called that the midway point and then started decreasing. And I should say, if you don't know this, I made this, you don't have to follow a pattern, but I used a tutorial by MSC Makes on YouTube to make this, which was really clear and yeah, perfect, really did the job. So I didn't add a border because I didn't have enough at the end of one single colour to go all the way around the edge. And well, I might have had enough perhaps of one of the orangey colours, but I didn't really fancy an orange border. And so yeah, so I didn't add a border, but I think that's fine. And I didn't want a multicoloured border as well with different sections and different colours, so I decided to just leave it as it is. So this was, obviously it's used up like a nice amount of yarn, and it was a good use of this yarn, but I have still got this much left. So the yarns, I've only got a tiny amount of this light green yarn, but then some of the other colours, like this, I'm not sure what it's called, but anyway, this orangey colour, I've got quite a bit left of. And I guess this is partly because of how I decided to make the blanket, that I wanted to do it obviously in stripes, and it's corner to corner as well, so I couldn't just keep going in rows, although I don't know if that would have made much different, but it meant that I did use a sort of a specific amount of each colour, and I didn't, for example, the way Emma makes hers in her tutorial, she's just stash busting a whole load of scrap yarn, and she just picks it. She's got a lot more colours than this, although they do all go together really well. She just picks them up at random, I think, with a bit of thought if she thinks it's getting, I can't remember, but I think she sort of planned it slightly, but essentially it's random. So sometimes she changes colour mid-row, mostly it's one row of each colour, but all just mixed up. So you could use however much yarn you wanted to until you run out. But because of the way I've done it, I couldn't just keep going until I'd used up all my yarn. I had to sort of stop before I finished it. So I'm really pleased that I've managed to make a whole other blanket with the yarn I had left over from the Sarah blanket, but I'm now not quite sure what to do with all these little bits. I'm thinking possibly I might give it to a charity shop because they're so small, these bits, and so many different colours. I can't really think of a project that I'd use them in. So I think I might give it to a charity shop. I've said before, I'm trying to have a bit of a stash busting year this year and always have some sort of stash busting project on the go, but also just generally get rid of stuff that I'm not going to use. So this week I've got a friend who has recently, I think in the last year or so, started doing a bit of crochet knitting again. I think she's done it before. So I messaged her and asked her if that, sent her some pictures of the yarn and asked her if there's any she was interested in. So this, on Monday, I posted off a package of yarn to her, which felt really good. That was a good chunk to have got rid of. So I think there's no point me keeping this, it just hanging around and not knowing what to do with. I think I'm probably gonna take that to the charity shop next time we go and get rid of that. But I'm pleased I got this second blanket out of it first. So yeah, that's my second finished item. And the second half, it went so quickly because the first half I was just sort of doing bit by bit in quite small chunks with big breaks in between. But once I got to that halfway point after the last podcast episode, I just decided, right, I'm just going to go for it and work on it almost. I think this was probably the only project I worked on for a few days, and I just really went for it. And yeah, it's finished in no time. And because the rows get shorter and shorter as you go as well, you kind of feel like you're speeding up. So that's quite satisfying as well. Quite a nice way to work. So yeah, that's my Stitch C2C blanket. And so those are my two finished items. Just move some bits out of the way. And then we'll come on to whips. So the first whip I'm going to show you is a knitting whip. And this is one that I didn't show you last time because I hadn't really worked on it, but I did show it to you, if you're keeping track, in episode 28. So this is finished, but it's a sock. So obviously the whole project isn't finished because I need a pair of them. So I finished this one off. This is the Autumn Berry sock. Hang on a second, who's it by? It's designed by Caitlin Barthold, and it's from this book, The Sock Knitting Bible by Lynn Rowe. So this is, I think I've talked about it a bit before, this is a really great book if you're interested in sock knitting. I like, video tutorials are great, but I do like having like a paper book reference as well sometimes. So I'm not constantly having to look on my phone for things like Kitchener stitching the toe. I can never remember how to do that, and I'd much rather look it up for a reminder in a book than watching a video each time. So yeah, this is, it's got all the like techniques and instructions of how to knit socks, and then at the end it's got a load of patterns of different socks. You can see some of them on the back there. But yeah, this is the Autumn Berry sock by Caitlin Barthold, and I'm quite pleased with it. I made it with, so the turquoisey teal colour here and here, this is from Coop Knits, which I bought last autumn in a really lovely little independent bookshop, which also had a fabulous yarn section. It's called Suddenly on Sheaf Street, I believe, and it's in Daventry in the UK. So if you're ever near there, I definitely recommend popping in if you like books and yarn. It's a brilliant combination. And then this yarn here is Aubergine, and that's from, it's hand-dyed yarn from Peak District Yarns, which I bought when we were in the Peak District in Bakewell, a yarn shop in Bakewell last Easter last year, so I've had it in a year. So I finished this sock, really like this kind of lacy detail. It's the first time I've knit, I haven't done an awful lot of knitting, which if you've been watching the podcast for a while you'll know. So this is the first time I've done this kind of stitch work, but really happy with how that's turned out. There are of course a few mistakes in it here and there, but I'm not quite sure I could find them again, to be honest. But I put this is the whip that I mentioned earlier that I put on hold. So I finished that. I'm not going to cast on the next sock because I've started another sock knitting whip, which I will show you now. So this is, have I got the right bag? Yeah. So I'm joining in with Emma C Makes, who I mentioned before, did the moss stitch tutorial. She is currently running a Shorty Sock KAL. This is my first ever time joining in a KAL with a K as opposed to a C. So I'm making a pair of Shorty Socks with Emma's KAL. She's got written pattern on Ravelry and video tutorials over on her YouTube channel, and she's also got she's on Patreon, and if you're a member of her Patreon account, you call it, I'm not sure, but then you get it all on there as well as part of your membership. Anyway, these are the socks. So I've got, what I've decided to do, it started on Monday this week, and what I've decided to do is knit them 2 at a time. So she's got the idea, I think it's, I was going to check actually, I can't remember if it lasts, I think it lasts about 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And the idea is to knit a whole pair of socks in that time. And I think there's prizes if you manage. Well, not for everyone that manages it, but if you manage it, then you're eligible to potentially win a prize. But anyway, I thought the best way for me to make sure I manage it is to knit them, 2 at a time. So that's what I'm doing. And this is why I've put the other sock project on hold at the moment, because I want to make sure that I have the best chance of getting these finished during the KAL. So this is how far I've got, because they're Shorty socks, that's the whole leg. So on this sock I've obviously done the cuff and the whole leg, and then the next bit is going to be the heel flap, but this one I've got a little bit further to go on the leg. It winds up, doesn't it? It's hard to show you. A little bit further to go on the leg before I do the heel flap, but yeah, they're coming on really quickly. The yarn I'm using is, so let me show you. This is the darker yarn. I've only got a little bit left of this. I was really tempted to buy more yarn for this KAL, but I thought actually I've not got a massive stash of sock knitting yarn, which is why I was having trouble finding a pairing that I liked to have a contrast. I wanted a contrast cuff and toe like Emma's done, and I was having trouble finding a pairing that I liked, so I was sort of tempted to buy some more. But then on the other hand, I didn't get through it that quickly, and I did have quite a few options, so I decided to just go with the best option I could find. So this was what I had left over from 2 other pairs of socks. This was originally 100 grams, so far I've used it to do the 2 cuffs, and it will do the toe as well. This is called Obsidian, and it's from Fruitful Fusion. So it's quite a dark one, but it's got like little flecks of a kind of, not sure if you can see it, kind of maroony pinky purpleness to it, which I thought went quite well with the pink that I'm using for the main sock. I'll hold them next to each other. Can you see that okay? And this one is another one from Peak District Yarns, which I bought at the same time as the aubergine and last Easter up in the Peak District. So I'm using this for the main bit of the sock. It's called The Colour of Fleas, which is this, I always thought fleas were kind of beigey colour. Are fleas this pink? Maybe they are if they've bitten someone. What do you think? I quite like it though, because it's not too speckled, but it's got like quite a lot of changes in colour, and it's got these kind of like light purpley bits as well as the light pink and darker pink. And I'll show you how it's knitting up again. You get kind of stripes or streaks of the different colours in it when you knit it up. So I think, yeah, it's not like starting from scratch. I wouldn't have chosen this, like if I was browsing online, I wouldn't have chosen this pairing of yarns, but I think, you know, you can sort of get away with things with socks, can't you, that you wouldn't do with other garments or accessories. They can be a little bit not ideal and still a nice fun pair of socks to wear. So yeah, I'm enjoying working on this. So hopefully at the rate I'm podcasting, maybe by the next episode, hopefully that pair should be finished. I'm a UK size 8, so my feet are relatively long for a women's size, sort of at the larger end of women's feet sizes. So I always find the foot part of the socks is the really tedious, well, not that tedious, but it's the long part for me. It always seems to take the longest. Well, it does, because it's longer. It's always longer than however long I make the leg. So I always feel quite good starting off doing the calf, the leg, especially on this, it's really short. Then you get the interest of going around the heel, and then you just get the massive long foot, which seems to take forever, and then finish off quickly with the toe. But I'm really enjoying working on those, and go and check if you're interested in joining in too. Just head over to Emma's channel or her Instagram, and you can get all the details of how to join in. It's dead simple. I think you just have to post a picture on Instagram with the hashtag to be in with a chance of winning. And then one more whip. So this is one, I think I mentioned this project a couple of episodes ago. I was talking about a collaboration with Hobby Yarn, and it's called Hobby Natural Beauty, and I think I hadn't started it then. I can't remember. I should have checked. But I definitely showed you the yarn, and it is nearly finished now. So let's start with the yarn, shall we? So the yarn is the same yarn. I've got a bit attached to it that I used for the Shorty Socks, that I made recently, and it is, I've had so much trouble photographing this project. The green has just, it's quite a dark green, but it just sort of came out all the photos I tried to take of it kept coming out really, really light, but it's on video it seems to be doing a better job of showing up properly. But this is the yarn I'm using. It is Highland wool from Peru, I discovered, not the Highlands of Scotland. And as I had assumed, it's a DK weight yarn, and I'm using a 3.5mm hook with it. It's really warm, it's really nice. I love it. This one, the orangey one, it's got a slight kind of, I don't know if you can see it really, and I'm only using a little bit of it anyway, but it's got a slight, it's not like a completely flat orange, it's got ever so slight kind of golden tinge to it in places, which is nice, where the green is just a really nice, it's called winter green I think, and it is just like a really nice kind of Christmas tree, conifer, pine foresty dark green. And the challenge, as I said, it's called, so the yarn's from Hobby, and it's a challenge that they've set called Hobby Natural Beauty. So the idea is to make a design inspired by nature. I'm making a shawl, and this is it. It's called, I've got a stitch marker on it just to stop it from unravelling because I'm halfway on a row at the moment. It's called the Maltings shawl, and I actually made this, I can't remember when, a few years ago now, with a completely different yarn. I was silly and didn't write down, the first part of it is dead straightforward, but when I got to the edging with a leafy pattern around the edge, it's curling at the moment, but I'll hold it up a bit better so you can see it. The curls will come undone, well, once I've finished it off and once it's blocked. But it's got this like leafy pattern with overlay crochet around the edge. I think at them, how I'm holding it, they're looking a bit circular, but they are more elongated and leaf-like. But yeah, I made it once before with a different yarn that I'd got. I think that was a 4-ply, and this is actually a relatively thin DK, so I think they're quite close in weight, though this is a tiny bit thicker. But I didn't write down how I did the rounds. Then I washed it in the wool cycle on my washing machine, and it felted. It was just, I was so annoyed with myself. So once it had felted as well, having not written down what I did, there was no way I could look at it and work out exactly what I'd done. But I did really like the pattern, and I did have some nice comments on it. And on one of, I can't remember which project it is, but on Ravelry, on another project I was doing, on my project page for it, I had a photo of that project, and a bit of that shawl was in the background, and someone actually messaged me on Ravelry and said, oh, what's that, and is there a pattern for it? And I had to say no. But it was always been at the back of my mind that I wanted to try and remake it one day with fresh new yarn. I needed a bit of a break before I tackled it again, I think, to sort of rekindle my enthusiasm for it, but it was something I always wanted to return to. So this challenge from Hobby Natural Beauty seemed like the perfect time to do that. And I've learnt my lesson. I'm not going to put this in the washing machine, and I've been really good, and I've got a little notebook in the project bag, and I've been writing down each row as I do it. So writing up the pattern is just a case of typing it up, really. So yeah, it's nearly done. I'm going to do, I think, another round of green and then finish it off with a orange border, but this bit is ribbed, so it's a really nice cozy chunky autumn winter shawl, and it's, yeah, like I say, it's made with wool and it's DK weight, so it's going to be a really warm one. And then it's curling, I can't show it to you properly, but yeah, it's got this really nice leafy bit around the edge, which I've done using I think it's called overlay crochet, this technique. It's kind of a mixture between brioche and mosaic, and there's lots of similarities really between them all, but so we'll call it overlay crochet, I think. But yeah, really happy with how this is turning out. And like I say, I'm on the final bit now. I've done all this is the most complicated bit, and also because having to stop and write it down as well, each row as I did it, made it take longer. But now I'm back on straightforward crochet, just all in green again, and then like I said, I'll finish it off with an orange trim, and then hopefully write up the pattern quite soon. And it does take a little while to make, and I do want to have this pattern tested. I have most of my patterns tested, but occasionally I don't, but this one I definitely do want to, because I've not written a pattern with this technique before, and I want to make sure that the instructions that I write for it are clear and make sense. So yeah, I've got a pattern testing list with a group of really wonderful crocheters who test my patterns for me, and I'm always so pleased when I send out a request for testers to get lots of people volunteering and offering to test my patterns for me. So and they always do such a good job as well. It's really nice and exciting seeing their versions of the pattern and in different colours. It's a really fun part of the design process. But I think often it's a quick project, or if it's is a bigger project like a blanket, I don't ask them to make the whole thing, although they're welcome to do so. For example, if it's a blanket made in rows, it's normally got a repeat, so I ask them just to do, you know, one repeat of it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the full width as well. And if it's a motif, a blanket made of square or hexagon motifs, then I might ask them to just make a few and join them together rather than the whole blanket. But for this one, the test would be for the whole thing, because you sort of have, but partly because of the stitch count as well, you can't really just test this bit without, you probably could be a bit complicated and well, not complicated, but you'd have to make some adaptations to work out what you're doing for everything to line up properly. But really, I'd like people to make the whole thing, so I think I'll probably give people plenty of time to do their test. If you are interested in testing it, then I'll pop a link underneath in the description with a link to my pattern testing email list, which is different to my main one. So you're welcome to sign up there if you'd like to, and then you'll receive an email from me when the pattern's ready for testing, and there'll be a form to fill in if you want to apply. It's just easier for me that way than having lots of emails. If it's all done with a form, then you just get a nice spreadsheet automatically made with everyone who's offered to test. And unfortunately, I can never accept everyone, because I'd love to, but it would just be too many testers, and it's sort of partly when you get feedback, you want to take it all into account and acknowledge it and reply to everyone, so it would just be too much work to have loads of testers. But I always try to have a good number and a variety as well, and try out new people. So yeah, if you're interested, do sign up there. The one thing I do ask is that people have a public Instagram account though, so that while they're testing the project, they can share a picture on their Instagram, which I can use as well to show people different examples of the project. So yeah, if you haven't got a public Instagram account, then unfortunately I wouldn't be able to choose you as a tester. But yeah, so this is the Maltings shawl. It's called the Maltings shawl because originally the yarn that I bought to make the original one for it a few years ago, I bought at the what's it called, the Unravel Yarn Festival, which is held in a building called in Farnham, which is in Surrey in the south of the UK, and the building is called Farnham Maltings, and I did look up what it meant. I think it's to do with the leather tanning industry, something like that, but I quite like the name. And so originally, yeah, it was called the Maltings shawl because that's where the yarn was bought, in Farnham Maltings, and so I've decided to stick with that name for this one, even though the yarn's was no longer bought there. The yarn's not from there, it was just a yarn festival that they hold there, and there was a seller there. But yeah, really really pleased with it. Looking forward to finishing it off, getting the pattern written up, and then wearing it next autumn. So I think, let me just check my notes. Got the wrong page now. Yeah, that's my last whip. So the last things I was going to talk about today was some plans. One of them, I had something to show you for it, so I will be right back. Hi, back again. So I've always got like a zillion ideas of things I want to make, but I'm going to talk about the 3 projects that I want to make soonest. So it's 4 actually, sorry, 4. So definitely the next one I'm going to start as soon as I finish the shawl is another project for hobby, because I signed up for another collaboration with them, a challenge with them, which actually is happening at the same time. So I need to get cracking on this, because I think I need a post on the 1st of May, I think. So I've still got a couple of weeks showing what I'm making, but this is a granny square challenge. So it's to make anything, I think, apart from a blanket made of granny squares, and any sorts of granny squares as well. So I'm going to design a new tapestry crochet granny square for this challenge using this yarn, which is Tweed Dreams, which I've not used before, but it's really soft. It's quite thick, although it just says a 4mm hook, but that surprises me a bit because it feels thicker than that. It says it's lightweight, yarn category 3, but for me it feels more like a Aran, I think, at least. Anyway, it's tweedy, so it's got these like flecks of other colours in it. I've got 3 balls of the white, which I'm going to use as the main colour, 2 balls of the darker green, which I will use as a contrast colour, and 1 ball of the light green, which will sort of give it a bit of a pop. So I'm going to design the granny square. So I think what I'm going to make is one of these granny square bags where the squares are all like on the diagonal, like diamonds. So you have like, I think 5 on one side, and the bit where the handle is sort of from the points of 2 of the squares, and then you have 3 squares that kind of, I think it's 3, to wrap round the sides and the bottom. I'm sure you know what I mean, but if not, it will all become clear once I've made it. So yeah, so it'll be mainly white, and yeah, with I think green in the light green in the middle, darker green around it, and then white all around that. That's the plan, because I've always wanted to make one of those granny square bags, and straight away when they said make something else using granny squares, not a blanket, that's what I thought of. I also considered making a shawl, but don't know, the yarn's on offer and it didn't really, I wasn't so excited to make a shawl, so I thought this is the perfect time to make a bag. What was I going to say? Yeah, because it's a bag, I had hoped to be able to use a cotton yarn for it, but I think there's always quite a good selection of yarns that you can choose from for these projects, but unfortunately it didn't have a sort of DK or Aran weight cotton yarn that time. So this is, I think it's 100% acrylic. Yeah, so it's wouldn't be my first choice for a bag, but maybe I'll just use it as a sort of project bag for putting yarn in, and so it won't get too much wear. Anyway, but I'm really looking forward to using this kind of tweedy yarn and this sort of fresh, springy colour palette. So I expect I'll start work on that quite soon, because like I say, that shawl, the Maltings shawl, is really close to being finished now. Probably in the next couple of days I'll finish it off, and then I'll be able to start work on that. So hopefully, yeah, in the next episode I'll have something to show you for that project as well. Another project I'm really keen to make is It's a crochet sweater, a summer one made with cotton yarn, and I'll pop up a little picture of it so you can see. This is from the Ravelry page, so you can see what it looks like. It's called the Honeysuckle sweater, and it's by Brindle Babe Designs, and it's available. You can buy a paid version of the pattern on Ravelry, or it's available for free, but with ads and things on her website. And it uses, it's a cotton DK yarn, and I think it'd just be really great for summer. And as you can see from her photos, the sample was made with an off-white yarn, and I have got this DK off-white yarn in my stash, which isn't quite enough to make a whole one. Those are looking different colours, aren't they, on the camera? They don't in real life. They're all the same. They all look the same shade. Must just be how the light's picking it up. So I think I could use up this yarn, and I'd probably have to buy definitely one more ball, possibly 2 more balls of it, based on the yardage that it says in the pattern. But I think what I'll do is I'll start making it and see how I'm getting on before working out how much more I need to buy, because I don't want to make the same mistake as I made with this cardigan and end up buying way too much more than what I need, and then ending up with unused yarn and only going down by a little bit. But that's my next plan, is to stash bust this cotton yarn and use that to make a jumper. Also quite keen, one of my daughters has got a similar jumper, that kind of like lacy look about it, which she got a couple of years ago now. I think it was from H&M, in a really nice kind of lemony yellow colour, sort of quite bright, not fluorescent, but a really nice bright but pale, if that makes sense, lemony yellow, which she loves, and her little sister really likes it too. I think it's probably getting a bit small for my older daughter now, but it's quite similar to this pattern. So I was thinking, it's not in child sizes, although my older daughter's now a UK size 6 fits her. She's 13, coming on nearly 14 later this year. So I might, once I've made one for myself, I can see how it works up, and I could work out perhaps how to adjust it, maybe just by going down to a 4-ply yarn, or something to make it for my younger daughter. But I might make, if they like it, they can see what it looks like anyway, and I could make them each one as well. But that would keep me busy for quite a while, and that wouldn't be stash busting, that would be needing to buy more yarn. But yeah, that's the next project, another project I should say. And then I've got quite a bit of other cotton yarn left over in various colours that don't really go together very well, and that I don't think I'm that likely to use for anything. So what I'm thinking of doing is making 1 or 2 just big crochet baskets with several strands held together, and I think that would be a really good quick way of stash busting that as well. So that's another upcoming stash busting plan. And then my final plan is, so one of my friends, she's recently completely renovated and decorated her house from top to bottom, and they've extended it, and it looks it's not quite finished yet, but I've been around seeing it. It looks absolutely amazing, and she asked if I'd make her a blanket for her new lounge. So that, I'm really excited to do this, because I just like the idea of, she sort of asked for my suggestions of what would look good. I went round and had a little look the other week and saw she had some cushions that we looked at, and she said, I was thinking perhaps in these sorts of colours. So that's great. So I think what we're looking for is a kind of off-whitey colour and a charcoaly dark or dark grey, possibly with a pop of some greens, but the main colours would be kind of white and grey. So I think what I'm going to do is, I've got a few ideas. I think we'll keep it quite, nothing too boldly patterned, but it could have perhaps a small repeating pattern on it. But I think what I'm going to do is crochet up a few samples. She wants it quite thick as well, so that's good. I think I'll probably do it in an Aran or a chunky yarn. But I might crochet up a few samples of different stitch patterns for her to choose from, and then order all the yarn, depending on which one she goes for, then order all the yarn and make that. And it'll be quite a long-term project, but hopefully I can get it done for maybe for the autumn or sometime like that later this year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to coming up with some ideas and sending her the photos for that for her to choose from. So that's about it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. As always, I've really enjoyed chatting crochet and knitting with you. It's really nice to have time just to talk about everything that I've been doing. If you'd like to leave a comment, say hi, let me know what you've been working on, where you've been watching from. That would be lovely to hear from you. And yeah, do remember to like and subscribe to my channel if you want to receive notifications of other videos. I've got plans for some more tutorials coming soon, which I'm hoping to film soon. And otherwise I should be back in a few weeks with another podcast to show you updates on everything I've been working on. But yeah, until next time, have a wonderful few weeks and enjoy all your crochet and knitting time, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.